Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining me again today. This is number 10 in the sequence of our meetings. And today we just go on into the cycle of Uranus. This is the main thing that I'm trying to explore in this series. And there were a few added bits, which I hope are not too confusing if you have already been following this. But today I want to begin with a little bit of a recap, because if you joined me for the first time, and today there were a few new people on the list, and I want to just make it as clear as I possibly can, because there have been a few questions in the Facebook groups and other places this week about why am I mixing certain things the way I am. And just to be very clear exactly what this thing about the planets is really referring to as well, because we're really not discussing the transits of those planets that I'm spotlighting during each one of our meetings here, but more the planets as functions in us, something that we all have, part of our overall complexity and all the tools that we operate with, called Mars, Venus, Pluto, Neptune, whatever it may be. So even the transpersonal planets or the social planets, not just the personal ones, I think are having their say, and they are really creating the main theme of a particular age period. So pairing two planets every 14 years, so 7 years each. We started with the Moon and Saturn when we were in the beginning of life. In reality, we all go through the same stages, because the generic human life cycle is a transition through different phases, and each one has a particular thing that we need to concentrate on. From birth to the 7th year, I talked about the Moon. You can go back to the very first talk if you want to see why, how, and why is this so important to be developed by the small child with the help of everybody else around it, to be then a very good foundation for the next period and the next period. Saturn came into the picture between 7 and 14. And these two are like the mother and the father archetypes. These two functions, which very early in life we begin with. Then other things come to play. When we are between 14 and 30, the second almost 28, 30-year period, there is another pair that we talked about then, Mercury and then Uranus. So when we have a pair, the two balance each other out in a way. They complement each other and they have something to do with each other. For example, you can see the connection, I hope. Moon, Saturn, very logical, very foundational. Then Mercury and Uranus are two different ways, two different levels and styles and stages as well of getting into the intellectual development of the early life stages, getting information in, orienting ourselves in the environment, and then responding to that with our own take. Separating intellectually as well by simply learning how things function from a lot of things from our background. When we reached the 30s, after the first Saturn return, I then started talking about the pair of Venus and Neptune. And hopefully that made sense to you at the time, how this is the moment when, especially in the beginning of the 30s, everybody has the chance to balance their Venus, to understand how the Venus function is supposed to operate. Looking back into the birth chart is the most important personal way you can do it. You know that that's the time of this planet between 28 and 35. And we're trying to make the most of it in all the different ways that we discussed at the time. Neptune is crucial as a second stage of that journey of self-discovery, expressing yourself out there, learning how to feel good in your own skin, and many, many other themes that we talked about then. Next, we had Mars and Pluto. In many places, you would read that these pairs of planets are connected. There have been different ideas about the different pairs. Not everybody would necessarily agree with me, but this part of the talks I'm doing here is my part of it. I decided to take a risk, explore it, see where this is going to take me, propose to you to also consider that, and tell me what you think. do you agree with me that somehow, if we observe the transits as well, which is the reason why I'm connecting the main transits, especially of Uranus, Saturn, and Jupiter, that happen to us, again, the generic transits, those ones which are to do with their own cycles around themselves, and not touching particular planets in our birth chart as a transit. So I'm including these as well to show you the atmosphere. The transits are creating this atmosphere in the different ages. And then when we look back at the planet, which I think is the main one, it always so far, we have been through what, 9 meetings so far. I have been discovering for myself that this particular planet is pointing out to lessons, to experiences, to modes of operation, which are very relevant to the actual transits that we also experience parallel to this in the same 7-year section. Okay, going back to where I just stopped, Mars and Pluto were between, this is really coinciding with the midlife crisis and the tricky area of the 40s, where there were so many oppositions, so many things to balance, and it's such a crucial transition point. At that moment, after Venus-Neptune, it was like, if you notice, it's always like personal planet paired with another one which is not personal, either social or transpersonal. So we started with Venus in the 30s, balanced that out with Neptune in my age, which is 35, 42 to 49. That was Mars getting out there and making things happen the way you want to navigate them, through your own will, through your own courage. And this was really a test of how much we can assert what we have decided to do. And to some extent also catch up with things that we weren't able to realize in the previous stages. Finally, in a way, put a stamp on the world. So that was very much from in out kind of thing with Mars. Pluto was the theme of the 8th meeting. That was 4956. And then today we are finishing off the final pair of planets, which I think in a way can be looked at together. After today, there will be no more planets. We are going to have 2 more meetings. And my idea is to go to the very end of the Uranus cycle, which is age 84. And to get there, because we finished at 70 today, we would need to meet 2 more times. And I don't have that same idea there. There will be other astrological significators, other things in astrology or in the birth chart, which I will tell you would have their moment, I believe, when we get very much deeper into serious old age and the final stages of life, even though doesn't need to be ending at 84. It's very, very likely that there is something to explore also for the period after the 98th year, as there is something which comes beyond the cycle of Uranus. The cycle of Uranus is really the guiding thing that we use or can use if we want nowadays. If we look at this from the perspective of humanistic astrology as a time guide, what we need to do when certain things are going to be presented to us as like changes of direction and changes of mood, which can be explained, I think, if we have at the background of our mind this navigation. Where are we right now? In which step of the 12 steps of the Uranus cycle? So Uranus cycle is really 12 times 7. That's why we go 7 years every time. Last time it was 56 to 63, and we came to the sun in the natal chart, the sun as a principle in all of us. And I think that has its continuation, completion in the planet Jupiter. Jupiter is the only one that we haven't really spotlighted so far. And I think its right place is really here today when we are between age 63 and 70.